Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, ready? Okay then. So hi and welcome to the EXA referendum debate. It's fantastic to see you guys all here. My name is Jerome and I'm the student president of our Students Association. And before I take the opportunity to introduce you to our speakers, I would like to thank first of everyone who helped us organizing this debate. So first off, our staff, Graham, and Karen did all a fantastic job in designing posters, sending invites, communicating with our speakers, and doing way more. And it's absolutely fantastic that they helped out. Also, my colleagues, Jenny, Diane, and Zoe did absolutely also a fantastic job handing out leaflets and speaking to you all and convincing you all to come to our debate. Then this event was organized by the Students Association, and we are an independent organization, but still we got a lot of like this one. Maybe you have been to our Freshers Fair that we organized last week. And we get also, of course, students involved with societies and events. But most importantly, we organize elections throughout the year. And really, if you thought this referendum was exciting, then wait till you see our sabbatical elections. Absolutely. Maybe even a better question to ask is, what can't we do? Because last academic year, we received the NUS Award for Best Students Association of the UK, which we're very, very proud of. And we achieved this because of campaigning for your students' rights, which we take very, very seriously. We also had massive wins over past years, and the best thing of all is you can take part in our um, in our um, um, in our actions and in our protests. Then getting back to our debate, overall we had fantastic reactions when we organized this debate. Yesterday I spoke to a group of students when I was handing out leaflets, and basically they told me that they weren't able to come because they had other commitments. But when I was leaving to go to other group of students handing out flyers, I heard them starting a debate themselves. And you know, even though they weren't able to come here, that is a fantastic result in itself. And we absolutely hope that even also after the whole referendum debate, students will continue to debate and speak about politics all the time, because it's fantastic. We have also a great turnout is expected at this referendum, and we really hope that this really continues and it's an incentive for further politics. Then yeah, I won't hold you up any longer. I'm very, very happy that we have these speakers, and I'm very happy you are here. And I will hand it now over to Fanny. Thank you very much.
I'm going to sit down because it is roasting under these lights. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for coming along to the Edinburgh College Student Association organised independence referendum debate. I think it's fair to say that for all of us, this is probably the most exciting decision that we're ever going to have a part in making. And I know that for me, the part that's been most engaging for me is the fact it doesn't seem to matter where I go, who I'm with, who I'm talking to. Everyone in the street, everyone in the pub, everyone at home, everyone at school is talking about the outcome of this decision that we're going to make. So I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Colin Fox, who is a co-convener for the Scottish Socialist Party, Kenny MacAskill, who's the Cabinet Secretary for Justice and SNP member, Kez Dugdale, who is the Edinburgh Lothians MSP for Labour, and Cameron Buchanan, who's the Edinburgh Lothians MSP for the Conservative Party. So can we give them a round of applause, please? Lovely, thank you. Can I ask, could you please check your mobile phones and make sure that they're switched on to silent, please? There's nothing more distracting when someone's having a chat with you about something so important as to have someone's mobile phone going off in the middle of it. So we've taken a coin toss, and the agreed format that we're going to do from now is that the yes side are going to start with a 4-minute speech, and that's going to be Colin who takes the first speech. Then we're going to pass over to Better Together. Kezia is going to take a 4-minute speech before passing back to Kenny and then on to Cameron. They're each going to have 4 minutes. When you have 30 seconds to go, I will tell you have 30 seconds to go. I have been entrusted, and I have no idea who made this decision, with an actual whistle, which I'm going to start blowing. If any of you have met me before, you probably realise I do not need a whistle to get people to stop talking. But I have a whistle, and I am not afraid to use it. So you will be whistled at 4 minutes until you stop speaking, or until I can stop blowing my whistle, whichever comes first. So I'll hand you over now to Colin Fox for the SSP.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bonnie, and thank you to Jerome and to Edinburgh College students for inviting me here. I'm delighted that we won the toss, and I hope that's a harbinger of things to come next week. I think I'd also like to thank all of you for coming, because as Bonnie says, this is the most exciting time in Scottish politics. This is the most important debate and discussion we've ever had in 300 years. It's a very, very important and onerous decision we take next Thursday about the future of our country. So no pressure, eh? And to add to that, the opinion polls have told you that it's a dead heat. This is on a knife edge. And I have to say, I'm reminded of that scene. I don't know if people remember the film Airplane, when there's a guy in the air traffic control and he says, looks like I picked up the bad time to give up amphetamines. Well, this is a really exciting time in Scottish politics, and I think what we're doing is making a decision about the future of our country. And it's safe to say Scotland is never going to be the same again, regardless of the result next Thursday, and that's really, really important. I noticed on Saturday night, I was watching the press review on television when the YouGov poll came in, and it showed that the yes side had a 2% lead, the first lead we've ever had in the past 2 years. And I watched Bonnie Greer, Jasmine Alibi Brown, Eve Pollard, the columnists in The Guardian, etc. Absolutely flabbergasted, and they reminded me of students who've just dawned on them, got their Scottish hire to sit on Thursday, and they've been dogging classes for the last 2 years. And there is absolute panic now in the London chattering and political classes. So much so that we are privileged to have today in Edinburgh, the Prime Minister's not at the dispatch box having Prime Minister's questions with Ed Miliband. He's scampering around Edinburgh desperately trying to pretend that this is a normal Tuesday for him. There is panic in the campaign, the No campaign, and understandably so. For me, the No campaign was led by Alistair Darling, who was recently doing an impersonation of Private Fraser from Dad's Army, telling us, we're doomed, the oil's about to run out, it's no worth tuppence, our currency will be useless, we'll never have a pension, the sun will never shine again after the 18th of September in Scotland. Well, they've dumped Private Fraser, and he's been replaced by Corporal Jones. Don't panic, don't panic. We'll put the Saltire above Downing Street. We'll put the Saltire above Wembley Stadium. We'll cancel Prime Minister's question time. We'll all run to Scotland, and I'm afraid it's too late. It's too little. And the people of Scotland are about to make, in my view, a monumental decision that we are going to take our own decisions from now on. We are going to determine our own future. We are going to vote for independence. And you know, I like to make it clear, I'm a lifelong socialist and trade unionist. And supporting Scotland's democratic right to self-determination doesn't make you a Scottish nationalist. It makes you a Democrat. This is a democratic question. This is about Scotland having its democratic right to determine its own future. And you know, I bring you the news that Britain is not a country. Britain is a political union, that rare thing in the world today, a rare thing. It's a political union of 4 countries. Scotland, on the other hand, we are a country, we're a nation. We're not a province or a region of anywhere else. We're a country, we're a nation. And we are democratically entitled to determine our future in the same way that 300 other nations of the world are also similarly entitled. And I'm confident a week tomorrow, the people of Scotland are going to vote for independence and going to decide that we are making our own decisions from now on. No more Tory governments we didn't vote for, no more Trident, no more bedroom tax. The days are over. Thank you very much for your time.
That was Colin Fox, who's the co-convener of the SSP, and I'm now going to hand over to Kezia Dugdale for the Better Together campaign.
Afternoon, folks. It's really nice to be here. It's the first time I've been to the Sighthill Campus of Edinburgh College, although I know the Milton Road campus very well. So if you're up here from Milton Road, nice to see you again. Before I got involved in politics, I worked in the student movement. I actually worked for the Students' Association at Edinburgh University. I was the welfare advisor there, working on the front line, giving student advice on housing, sexual health, student support, all sorts of different issues, and I left that job to go and work for the National Union of Students. So the interests of students, student rights and the funding of further and higher education are incredibly important to me, and I look forward to your questions later on during the debate. Let me say this to you, I got really annoyed, and it's not my usual style, when I was looking at Twitter this morning, Alex Salmond proclaiming Team Scotland, that this debate was now about Team Scotland versus Team Westminster. I'm absolutely 100% Team Scotland. It's because I want Scotland to be a fairer, more equal country that I'm going to vote no next Thursday, because I think the best way to do that is remaining part of the United Kingdom. I think the challenges that we face in this country are the same as many people in the urban centres of England and Wales, and I want to take on those challenges and defeat them together. One of the things that brought me into politics was child poverty, and the fact that you can have 2 kids that are 3 years old in this country and their lives are mapped out and predetermined simply by the geography of where they live. That's an absolute scandal, and I'm sure there's not a person in the room who that doesn't touch and that doesn't fire up when it comes to their politics. Here's one stat for you. 6 out of 10 kids that live in poverty in Scotland today come from households where at least one parent works. So we've got a big problem with poverty pay in this country. You can go and work a full working week and still not earn enough to look after your family. Now the solution to that for me is a living wage, an actual wage that pays. And I've been campaigning for a living wage for a number of years, but I don't just want that for Scotland, I want that for the whole of the United Kingdom. In fact, it's better that we do it across the whole of the United Kingdom, because if you end up with higher wages in Scotland than you do in Newcastle or Carlisle, guess where the jobs are going to go? We need to be able to have a living wage for workers across the whole of the United Kingdom, and I want to campaign to deliver that. And we had an opportunity to do that in the Scottish Parliament. £9 billion a year is what we spend procuring things as taxpayers, buying in services from the private sector, whether that be care workers and nursing homes to building the new Forth Road Bridge. We buy things with our tax money. And we had an opportunity to make sure that every penny that came from that would be spent on the living wage. Nobody would earn less than a living wage to build something on the public purse. And the government voted it down. So I raise that because it's about political will. The ability to introduce a living wage, to raise the standards, to tackle child poverty, isn't about where power is. It's deciding that you want to use it, and use it in the interests of the people who need the help the most. And I think the best mechanism to do that is across the whole of the United Kingdom. We would be £6 billion worse off from the starting blocks in independent Scotland. That's austerity plus. Get your austerity measures and add £6 billion to it and tell me how you're going to make our schools better, our hospitals better, and ensure that there's places in college and university for all the young people in this country. I want a fairer, more equal United Kingdom, and I will campaign and do everything I can to make that happen in the years ahead. So thank you very much for your hearing. I look forward to your questions.
That speaker there is Kezia Dugdale, who's the Edinburgh MSP for Edinburgh Lothians, and also campaigning for Better Together. I'm now going to hand you over to Kenny MacAskill, who's Cabinet Secretary for Justice and a member of the SNP party.
Well, thank you. This is our chance to shape our own destiny, our opportunity to write our own history, because we face a choice of 2 futures. If we vote yes, then we'll make all the major decisions that matter here in Scotland. We'll decide whether we live at war or go to peace. We'll decide whether we spend on nuclear weapons or whether we spend on care of welfare for the dignity of the old and the opportunities for the young. We'll decide whether it's tax breaks for the rich or it's to be welfare cuts for those who are disabled. We won't know, and these decisions will be taken, quite often taken against our will, and as a government and as an individual, I'll march against the war that's illegal, as we've done before, and many of you probably did that. I'll protest against benefit cuts, whether for the disabled or the imposition of the bedroom tax. I'll oppose policies of austerity driven by an agenda of privatisation south of the border, but it'll happen, and we'll have to accept them, even although we won't be voting, I believe, for that government. That's why this is our opportunity, and our message is one of can, should and must. Scotland can be a successful, prosperous, independent nation. That's even accepted, I think, by Kezia and by Cameron. I believe that we should be, and the argument for should be is threefold. First of all, it is about democracy, as Colin was correctly saying. We will always get the government that we vote for. Within my lifetime, it's not just David Cameron. It's been Ted Heath. It's been Margaret Thatcher. Is it to be Boris Johnson in cahoots with Nigel Farage? We don't vote for them, but we get them imposed upon us, so that's a democratic argument. Secondly, it's about prosperity, not seeing everything sucked in to the city of London. Opportunity for youngsters driven down here because of a lack of opportunity here. The manufacturing industry of Scotland sacrificed on the altar of just currying favour with the city of London. This is the opportunity to create a more prosperous society. And thirdly, and I believe equally, if not more important, an opportunity to be a fairer society. Because whatever Kezia may be saying, the fact of the matter is the United Kingdom is now one of the most unfair countries in the developed world. The gap between rich and poor has accelerated and widened. It's not just a moral argument for a more fair and equitable society. Societies that are more equal are actually economically better off. They're healthier, they have better well-being, better environment. That's why we need a more equal society. So it's those 3 points. But fundamentally, we must be for two particular reasons. We must be an independent nation, because if not, we will see the privatisation of the NHS. And yes, we control the policy, but we don't control the purse strings. And as they privatise south of the border, the money available to a government of Scotland, whatever political colour, will reduce, and we will not be able to sustain the services that we view as essential. That's why I believe that it's important, and we must have a yes vote. We must have, not simply to protect us from the iniquities of benefit cuts, from illegal wars, from the privatisation of the NHS and other aspects and walks of life, but also about the opportunity to shape our own destiny. This isn't about the economy. It's not about being £500 better off or worse off. It's not about the Constitution, it's about values. What sort of society do we want to live in? I want to live in a society where we get our government, we can hold our head high internationally, and at home we can create a better, fairer, more prosperous society. That's why we need a yes vote.
That speaker is Kenny MacAskill, Cabinet Secretary for Justice. I am now going to pass over to Cameron Buchanan, who is the Edinburgh Lothians MSP for the Conservative Party, on behalf of Better Together.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. And I just want to take up, first of all, Kenny's point. I didn't vote for your government either. So it's not a question of what government you vote for. I didn't vote for the SNP, and therefore it is not really relevant, I think, to say that we can't vote, we have to vote for Conservatives. Also, I think many of the Scots have family ties in the UK, and I do not want to see these split. I do not want to see a split in the UK. We've been part of the fact that in America, for example, it's 307 years that we've had in the States of being a nation. That's less than we've been a nation. We are a nation. We're a country and we're a nation. I'm proud to be Scottish and I'm proud to be British, and I do not want to separate. I think the idea of separation is innocuous. I just think it's bad, because when you think of a fairer society, we are a fair society. There's food banks in the south, there's poverty in the south, in Manchester, in Liverpool, in Newcastle. There's poverty everywhere, there's food banks everywhere. We've got them here, but I do not think that we've got the point across that we're going to be a fairer society. We're stronger together, much stronger together than apart. We've got much more chance of being together, and in any case, we've got a whole lot of arguments on our side about that. I feel that what we need to do is to make sure that we've got the idea of unity. We are a nation, we should stay together. Why the SNP want to still be a member of an independent country, yet be a member of the EU? Why, for example, can they not answer the question about the EU? The EU is controlled by 27 other countries. If they're going to be in the EU, surely they're losing sovereignty. They complain they want sovereignty, but they're not getting it because they're going to be part of the EU. They want to keep the euro. The euro is one of the most, they want to keep the pound, but the pound, you can't have the pound unless you've got control of the money. It's like divorce and you hand your wife the checkbook. You can't do that. This is a decision that we have to make. Your ex-wife the checkbook, sorry. But this is a decision we have to make, and we have to make it now. It's a one-off decision, and we cannot decide it in a hurry. And I feel that we've got to make sure that we don't need to separate. We're not like Ukraine, we're not like Kiev, we're not like everything else, other countries. We are not subjugated. We are a fair country, and we are not very much in the thrall of Westminster. I think that we've got to make sure that we know what we're doing and realize that this is a decision once and for all. We can't go backwards. Once you've made it, it's gone. You can't go back, and I don't think people realize that. On the currency, we can't control. We want to be stay in sterling. Only a few years ago, the SNP were keen on the euro. The euro has now been degenerated. Nobody wants the euro. So where do we go from there? You cannot really choose. I think the choice has got to be that we stay in sterling, but we can, and if we're part of the UK, we can control sterling. Thank you.
That speaker there was Cameron Buchanan, who is the Edinburgh Lothians MSP of the Conservative Party, and speaking on behalf of Better Together. Okay, so the next section, we're going to have some questions from the audience. What we're going to do is we've got some pre-selected questions which I'll ask audience members to come up and speak at. I'll give each side the opportunity to answer that. We are within a very specific time frame and want to be able to get through a number of different topics. So we'll see how things go. If we're taking our time and moving through things, I'll open up the opportunity to ask questions from the audience. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah. Okay, our first question then is from Zoe Croy. Zoe, are you in the audience?
So the college sector has seen reform, mergers and cuts all in the last few years. What would the college sector be better off in an independent Scotland?
Okay, did everyone hear that question okay? All right. I will go to the Better Together side first for their...
Kezia, you take the college
one. Excuse me, sorry. No, I don't think it would be better off in an independent Scotland. I also don't think it's automatically better off being part of the United Kingdom. What's really important about colleges is that the government of the day decides to prioritise them. And I think you should look long and hard at the record of the last 7 years in the Scottish Government, who have cut college places by quite a considerable margin. 130,000 fewer students going to college in Scotland since 2007. That's cumulatively 250,000 people over that period of time. Why does that matter? Well, working class kids and women, let me take each in turn. Because of what's happening in universities, where we have the highest dropout rates, the worst widening access, and the worst student support, it's increasingly harder for working class kids to get into uni. We know that as a fact. There's loads of reports to point to and say that. When it comes to colleges, you can't get into the door either because of these cuts to places. So young people from working class communities are being shut out of education. That matters because of their ability to access the jobs of the future, because all the jobs in the future are going to require us to be more skilled and more knowledgeable. And we need the education and the skills to be able to access that. So I want a government, regardless of the constitutional settlement, which will prioritise colleges to give young people the skills they need to succeed. But not just young people, it's got to be women as well, because the number of women that are not going to college now that were back in 2007 is quite considerable, 93,000 a year. That's women who are looking for a second chance at an education, women in their 20s and 30s, they're hardly old, wanting to access the skills they never got first time round, either because they didn't work at school or because school didn't work for them. They're being shut out of education just now. That's not just a travesty for them, but it's a travesty for their kids, because the best thing you can do to improve the life chances of a child is invest in the education of the parents. It works in gender equality, it works in child poverty, and it works in attainment. It's the one thing we can do as a nation to make it a fairer and better place.
And from the Yes Scotland side.
Do you want to answer that?
Okay, I think the answer to that is yes. I think as an administration we've sought to try and protect education. We look in contrast with the situation south of the border that is catastrophic. Why do I think it will be better in independent Scotland? Well, first of all, we'll be able to move away from the austerity as a policy. Yes, we have to address debt that has been accrued, first of all, by Darling and then by Osborne, but we have a government that actually views austerity as a policy and wishes to drive that home. We'll be able to reflate the economy as other countries in Western Europe, and indeed even President Obama seeks to do in the United States. And I say, secondly, we'll be able to ward off not simply the privatisation agenda that the UK government has, but the commoditisation agenda, where everything is just something that you can buy and sell, that you can access into. If you've got that ability, you've got that money. You want to be able to go to a gym? Well, join a private club. You want to be able to go to university or college? Well, you've got to have the finance. You want to be able to get health treatment because you're suffering? Well, you better take out a health policy. We'll be able to ensure that we move away from the policies of austerity and we protect and cherish the values of the ability of people to be able to aspire to their ultimate educational goal, whether in college, whether in university, and move away from the privatisation and commoditisation agenda.
Cameron Buchanan, would you like to?
Yes, can I just ask, where do you think all this money is coming from? That's what we don't know. We haven't quantified the money for all this free education and everything else like that in an independent Scotland.
Well, we're providing it in devolved Scotland with the limited money that you're cutting back on. Already we're able to do these things. We can do and all these things are done within the limited budget that we get that is reducing. Once we have control of our own fiscal powers, once we can decide that we want to reflate the economy, once we decide we don't need to spend 100 billion or more on weapons of mass destruction, never mind the House of Lords. It comes back to the point that Kezia said, politics is about choices. If you choose to spend, as the Better Together parties do, on weapons of mass destruction, then there comes at a cost, and that inflicts upon health, education, and care and welfare of the vulnerable, whether they're old or young.
I am going to be a bossy boots and say from now on, if we could avoid cross sort of chatting with each other, that would be lovely. But I am going to give Kezia the opportunity to come back on that question there.
Listen, I'm no fan of Trident either, but if we're honest with ourselves and look at what people in the Yes campaign have said over the past few months, I've heard 12 different ways to spend the Trident money. You can't spend it 12 different ways. It's like this get out of jail card that you can use in any argument to say, well, at least we won't have nuclear weapons. And if Kenny says politics is about hard choices, do you know what the price of free education in Scotland has been? It's been 130,000 college places. Just ask yourself that. That's been the choice that has been made, is to let middle class kids continue to go to university at the expense of 130,000 places within colleges across Scotland each year for the past 7 years. That's the hard political choice that's been made in the SNP, and it's gone in the wrong direction in my view.
I'm very conscious that we're in a college, and I think this is a line of debate that I think is very important to everyone in this room. So I think I'm going to give Colin the opportunity to come and have a chat about that, and then perhaps we'll maybe take some questions from the audience. If you've got some ideas in your head about things that you would like to ask around about your college education, then start preparing that now, and I'll be looking out for somebody in a second. So Colin, would you like to
Thank you. I'd answer Zoe's question by saying this: the college sector will be better off with independence, and I'll tell you why in two reasons. First of all, as Kenny has rightly outlined, this is a choice between the social democratic and socialist values the people of Scotland want to see implemented, or more of the same cuts, more of the same attacks on students' rights with tuition fees, more of the same withdrawing the opportunity for working class kids to get a university and college education. That's what's come down the line with a no vote, and the Yes campaign are making it absolutely clear. This is about us saying that we're going to ensure that the values that the people of Scotland want to see implemented are implemented because they're our values, rather than being at the behest of values that we don't support, cuts, attacks on working class people, and a future misery determined by 500 miles away people who don't care about us.
Okay, I'm going to look to the audience. Does anyone have a question? Chat there.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about education as well. In the campus area, sought to protect.
Hang on, I've got a microphone coming down for you, sorry.
Sought to protect education. And thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
In your last manifesto, you made a commitment to increase places in further education, and you said that you support it. There was no mention in the manifesto about 20% cuts, no mention about paying off lecturers, and we've got another £2 million that we've got to find now. I've been working in this college for the last 24 years, and things are as bad as I can ever remember. We've got courses getting cancelled, and we've got students sitting in classrooms with no lecturer because they've been paid off, and there's a freeze on recruitment, and we can't get lecturers in to teach them. Now, education is a devolved power. You're in charge of that, and what we're seeing really is the same. Just broken promises and lies, not from a Westminster party, but from a Scottish National Party sitting down in Holyrood. And you know, you're fond of talking about oil as a national resource. These young men and women sitting here are our best national resource, and they're being badly let down by your government. We are counting on them to make our nation prosperous in the future, and they're being sold short, in my opinion. My own personal opinion is you've wrecked a perfectly good college, and you say there's no money. Why then are you promising tax breaks for corporations in an independent Scotland? Trust us, you say. Trust us. Vote for independent Scotland, and we'll be living in the land of milk and honey.
I'm going to interrupt there, sorry, because there's at least 8 or 9 questions in there,
right.
and I think that's quite a lot to go on with. So, yeah, would you like to respond?
Well, the Scottish Government has protected in real terms and beyond the college sector budget. That is the position. In comparison to down south where we see total devastation. But yes, my government's got challenges because we only get pocket money given by Westminster. I have to impose cuts on legal aid. I have to impose cuts upon whether it's the fire service or indeed other services because we don't have enough money. What we have done as a government is to ensure we protect health. That's been our primary responsibility, and we have done so. We've had to put money in to protect the hardship that was coming from the bedroom tax, and we did so. And until we get control of our own budget, then we only get money that's handed down from the south of the border.
Sorry, please don't shout from the audience.
We would like to do more. That's why we've had the support in the agreement of NUS. We would love to be able to do more, but with the budget that is given to us, we're unable to do more than that. But we have protected core values in terms of free prescriptions, abolition of tuition fees, free personal care, all of these things that have been...
Sorry, please don't shout from the audience.
We've protected them with control of our own budget. We can do so much more.
Okay, I'm going to take over to Cameron Buchanan for a response there.
Can I come in there? Because education is totally devolved. It's how they spend the money that is their responsibility, not us. It's how they spend the money they have. It's a devolved matter. It is not one that you can claim anything he likes about how they spend the money and all this, but it is devolved. Therefore, how they spend the money is up to them.
Okay, I'm going to go to this lady here.
My name is Ada Pagan, and I'm an honorary fellow of this college, the first student ever to be made an honorary fellow. I would like just to point out your spending on education. Why did you change all the colleges' names? Why the rebranding? That money was spent uselessly. The colleges could have kept their names. Stevenson was after the lighthouse keeper. Telford was after the road designer. Every one of our Scottish colleges were named after famous Scottish people. But oh no, you took it on board. Let us change everything. Let us spend money. And what has happened? 10,000 students were without places in that academic year that just passed. Answer that.
Okay, I'm going to hand over this time to the Better Together side to come with a response for that, and then we'll go back to Yes Scotland.
I think she takes more bits from the floor. I'm happy to respond to that, but it just seems there's a lot more comments to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it's centralisation. That's what it is. It's centralisation. I think it's completely unnecessary to change the names. I agree, because everybody has their own individuality and they have their own speciality. This Edinburgh College lumping it together has never worked.
It never will.
Okay. Would you like to respond?
Well, you obviously don't like the policies of the SNP government or indeed my colleague Mike Russell. You're entitled to that. Equally, in 2016, you will have the opportunity in an independent Scotland to vote for whatever government you want. It might be Colin, the SNP. better than a scenario where we might get Johnson and Farage.
In the interest of fair debate, I'm going to ask that when I point to you, please come back with a question rather than an attack on the policies of either side, please. I don't think that that gives anybody in the audience the opportunity to really hear both sides when they're having to respond to attacks on decisions that have previously been made, if that's okay. I'm going to go to this lady here with the yellow top on. Yeah.
I'm the EIS branch secretary at the college. Is it not just a myth that the Yes campaign is nationalist? Because it's the Tories, the Lib Dems, UKIP and Labour that are nationalists. British nationalism has played such an appalling role from Calcutta to Cork and the invasion of Iraq. And would it not be a step forward to release that 100 billion and get the Trident out the Clyde?
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Betty together to answer that first, and then we'll go to you.
Penny, I'm assuming that's not an EIS position, because if it is, it's a pretty shocking one. I did your EIS debate last week where you asked a similar question and were deeply offensive about the Union Jack. Now, I'm not here as a unionist or a die-hard unionist. I'm voting in Scotland's interests, and this shouldn't be about flags. This should be about what's in the best interests of Scotland. So let's have a debate about education. Let's have a debate about things that matter to students, because quite frankly, that was a ridiculous question, and you asked it last week. It's outrageous. Okay, yes, Scotland?
I'd just say that I think Penny's absolutely right in as much as this isn't a debate. And I've said in my remarks, tried to make it clear that you don't have to be a Scottish nationalist to vote yes. Clearly the Scottish National Party have long championed this, and Kenny and his party have brought us to this place. There wouldn't be a referendum without the Scottish National Party. I think they're entitled to credit for that. But you don't have to be a Scottish nationalist to support independence. It's a democratic question. I'm a socialist, there are socialists, there are Greens, there are people of no political affiliation, and that's why Yes Scotland is now the biggest political grassroots movement this country has ever seen. It's been a tremendous success, and a tribute to every single one of them. And if I can say, and try, because I know we've just covered it before, Kezia makes the point that there's been 12 different spending of that money. Well, I've not heard the 12 of them. I can imagine the better council housing, the better living wage, the building of the things, nursery provision, etc. And they're 12 better than the current plan by the governments at Westminster to spend it on weapons of mass destruction, to leave Scotland in a country and a club of only 9 in the world with weapons of mass destruction threatening the rest of the world with nuclear annihilation. The Yes side have made it absolutely clear. You vote yes next Thursday, and I hope you do, and Trident is no more. They are gone. They are an affront to this country. They're immoral as well as expensive, and we intend to get rid of them. And I believe that's one of the reasons that Yes are now in front.
Okay. I can see a few hands up, so we're going to go to this audience member here, and then Kelly behind, and then we're going to move on to another topic, if that's okay. So this chap here with the black t-shirt on, with the yellow writing.
I'm a student. Why should I trust either of you? You're the Westminster government. The last time it promised devolved powers, it took 20 years to get a parliament. You are a smaller firm negotiating with the UK government. What can you demand? How can you get anything? Why should I trust either of your parties? I mean, the UK government only removed the idea of a vote for devolved power, and then forced that you have to vote either no or yes. So why should I trust either of the groups here?
Okay, so that's a great question, I think. Why should you, as students, trust either side? So I'm going to go first to the Yes side to answer that question, then we'll go to Betty together.
Well, I'll just say this briefly, because I think actually this debate is all about trust. You have to make a decision for yourself next Thursday. You have to work out who you can trust to build the kind of Scotland that you want to see. And we have evidence, to make up our decision. We've seen what the governments at Westminster promised us in the past and never delivered. Look at the Liberal Democrats today. I never thought, as a political activist, I'd ever see a party in Scotland more despised than the Tories in this country. But the Liberal Democrats have achieved it. And why? Because they ratted on a promise that there would be no tuition fees and that they would never go into coalition with the Tories, and they did it. That side have proven that you can't trust them. We're asking you in the Yes side to trust your own instincts, that we are capable of making our own decisions and capable of making decisions a damn sight better than somebody else who thinks they can make them on our behalf. This is about our prosperity, our fairness, and our rights democratically.
Okay, so we're going to take a response from Kez.
I don't expect you to trust me. I want to earn your trust. I think that's the way that politics should work, and for too long it's worked the other way around. What I would say to you was, though, that my party, the Labour Party, went to the electorate in 1997 saying we want devolution, we want to build a Scottish Parliament. 1998 there was a referendum, in 1999 the doors to that Parliament opened, so I don't think it's fair to say it took 20 years to get there. It happened between my 16th birthday and my 18th birthday. But let me just address the final point, and Kenny said this and I've heard it 100 times, I'm sick to the back teeth of it: you'll always get the governments that you voted for. That's just not true. And do you know why it's not true? Because you look at the election results in 2011, the Scottish Parliament election results in 2011, only 50% of people in Scotland bothered to vote that day. So more people either voted for a party other than the SNP or stayed at home and didn't vote at all. So we didn't, and you don't always get the governments that we vote for. And I think a much more important question to ask is, why is it that only 50% of people thought that voting mattered that day? What is it about politicians that hoard power, regardless of the constitution, regardless of political parties, that makes our democracy not work right now? We've got to give power away to people. And what's so exciting about this debate just now is that right now you've all got the power in your hand next Thursday, but when that moment passes, we've got to think of a new way to keep the power with you rather than with politicians. The whole nature of how politics works has got to change. That's not about the constitution though, that's about the bread and butter of how we do politics, full stop.
Okay, we're going to take a last question in this round from Kelly.
I just wanted to again explore the part about the extra powers. First of all, I think it's incredibly disingenuous to say that things are devolved when we don't get to decide what the budget is and actually what things are devolved. And in terms of the new powers that have been announced, why is it that parties are announcing them, and why is it not the people of Scotland actually decide what powers are going to be devolved?
Okay.
Why are you deciding?
Okay, we'll come to Cameron.
Can decide on next Thursday. They can decide what plans are involved. We've all come up with our own ideas. You've had the three parties who better together come together and saying what's going to happen afterwards. Well, it isn't one off because there's three parties, three different parties. You can't.
So is it three choices versus one choice? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's three different parties. It's three slightly different policies. Is what's going to happen. It's not a question of risk. The risk comes from them because they haven't quantified it. We've quantified exactly what we've got together with the money. Fiscal powers.
Kelly, how many different versions of independence are there? There's the green version that's got a brand new Scottish currency. There's the SNP version with the pound.
There's only one question on the ballot paper, and that is, should Scotland be an independent country?
Do you know what a white paper is, though? That's a mandate for independence. That's the whole purpose of a white paper, is to lay out what independence looks like. You go and vote yes next week. You're the one that's voting for a 3% cut in corporation tax. There's not one single policy in that document that moves money from rich people in this country to poor people. You tell me where it is, because it's not there. I only see the money going the other way.
Okay. So, yes, Scotland, Kenny, would you like to come back on that?
I think it comes back to the point Colin was making next Thursday about sovereignty for the Scottish people. It's not about them or us, it's about all of you. In 1707, Cameron was talking about it, the franchise was under 10,000 people, most of whom now would all qualify, probably would be members of the Bullingdon Club or whatever else.
Come on.
It wasn't the ordinary people of Scotland. You get your chance next Thursday to decide what sort of Scotland you want. The extra powers offer, let me say three things. If they really were committed to extra powers, why did they not have a third option on the ballot paper?
You didn't want it.
Government that ruled out that. It was David Cameron. Secondly, if they were so committed to extra powers, we've only seen a matter of months ago a Queen's speech setting out the direction. Why didn't David Cameron say, as a gesture of good faith to Scotland, realising what you want, tried to persuade you, we're going to make this offer of more powers? It's only when that first poll came out that we see them panicking. And thirdly and finally, we know from history that back in 1979, Sir Alec Douglas-Home, former Prime Minister, said, vote no and you'll get more powers and a better option. What we got was 19 more years of Tory rule and Margaret Thatcher and us having to live under her iron heel. That's why we can't trust them, and that's why the choice is for you and the power is with you.
Okay, I'm very conscious that time marches on. So we've got a question from David Downey. David, are you in the audience? Okay, can we have a mic to David, please?
Current UK policy is making it increasingly difficult for college and universities to recruit international students. Would an independent Scotland be more welcoming place for the immigrants?
Okay, so that question again. Current UK policy is making it increasingly difficult for colleges and universities to recruit international students. Would an independent Scotland be a more welcoming place for immigrants? And I'm going to go to the Better Together side first for that.
Can I start that and then go to
Yeah.
Yes, it would, and I think that's the right thing to do. And I'll tell you why, because you might not care a huge amount about this just now, but you will in the future. When it comes to pensions, we've got a massive gap in the pensions at the moment in this country. At the moment, we get £425 million from down south to make up that gap. But we're ageing faster as a country, so it'll go from being 1.1 million pensioners in Scotland to 1.3 over the next 20 years. So that gap's going to get bigger to about £700 million. We've got two choices to make. We either cut pensions or we increase the amount of immigration into this country. Now, if I had that choice, I'd absolutely go for the route of having more immigration. I think immigration's a good thing, of course it is. And I completely reject anything that the right of politics have to say about this, whether it'll come from the Tories or whether it'll come from UKIP. But here's where it gets a bit tricky. If Scotland has a vastly different immigration policy to the rest of the United Kingdom, then you are looking at borders. That's not scaremongering, it's just the reality of having two very different policies. And as a consequence of that, the rest of the United Kingdom would say we need a border to control migration into the rest of the United Kingdom. So yes, immigration is a good thing. Yes, I want to see more of it. I want to see more international students in this fantastic city, and international students make our city even better every year. But there is a consequence of that, and we have to be honest and talk about it.
Okay. Yes, side. Colin, would you like to take that one?
I agree with Kezia in this regard. I think I look forward to an independent Scotland and welcoming immigrants to this country, students and workers. But one of the things we have to address, and there's no point ducking around about it, we have to do something about the wages that are paid to immigrant workers, because they're being used as cheap slave labour by employers who are getting away with it,
Yep.
because there are the worst anti-trade union laws in the whole of Western Europe in this country, and we have to make sure that there isn't a conflict between those immigrant workers, as Kezia rightly said, who come to this country, make it a better place economically, socially and culturally, far superior to what it is without them. And we have to make sure they're not used as scapegoats, as they're currently being used. Scapegoating claimants and immigrants for a crisis caused by the bankers. That's Nigel Farage right there. Yeah. A merchant banker, multi-millionaire, former Tory, strutting around the country blaming claimants and immigrants for a crisis people like him caused. Quite rightly in Scotland we call these bluff. And I think it's understood. The length and breadth of Scotland. This is a country who understands what immigration and emigration is. Working people in Scotland have been leaving here for centuries in pursuit of a better life elsewhere. I was giving an interview to one of the students here, I'm sure Liam's here, and he's asking me about the future for students in the FE and college sector. And Independent Scotland will make sure that there are jobs here to ensure that you don't have to leave this country as 40,000 people, youngsters like you, are doing every year in Scotland. So I welcome immigrants to this country, understanding that they help build this country. They'll make it more richer, prosperous and culturally diverse, and that's a welcome thing. And I think there's a far better chance of that with independence than continuing with the current poison that comes out of Westminster, dressed up in their guards of UKIP and the Tories and their points of view in these matters.
Cameron Buchanan, would you like to come back on that?
I don't deny that we need immigrants in Scotland. Definitely, we need more immigration because we need more people. But the problem we have is if you separate from Scotland and England, we're going to have, as Kezia said, a border. How are we going to control that? The people are just going to go south where the wages are higher or where the job prospects are better, and the immigrants will go out. We're going to have to have a border. It's going to cost us money. We're going to have a proper border to stop everybody going. I'm in favour of immigration, and we need it.
Okay, and Kenny, would you like to respond?
Can I just, first of all, shoot that nonsense down? Every year, I have a trilateral with the Justice Secretaries of the Republic of Ireland and of Northern Ireland. I had one last year down in Dundalk, and I remember travelling down from Belfast. There was no border control. You go to the Republic of Ireland because it's part of the common travel area. You speak to the Justice Secretary of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and you will find out they have their own distinctive immigration policy in the Republic of Ireland, and the same situation will apply in Scotland. And there's two reasons why we should welcome immigration, and I specifically adhere to everything that Colin has said. First of all, it's part of our economy. The contribution made to Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Dundee from people who pay to come here, where we see some of that economy damaged because of positions taken on immigration by the UK government, it not only harms the opportunities for those youngsters to improve themselves, it damages the economy of our country because we cannot benefit from them coming in and quite often paying top dollar to contribute here. But equally, I'll repeat the same pledge that I made at mosques recently. We will not countenance the splitting of families. As my constituency MSP, within the last few weeks, I've had at least 3 people in who met the love of their lives when they were abroad, sat down and wanted to marry that lad or lass, and they're now told they can't come back. They've not just met somebody from the Indian subcontinent, perish the thought that we should treat them differently as we seem to south of in a desire in Westminster. They meet a girl in New York, or they meet a girl in Australia. They meet a lad in Manchester, in Frankfurt, or wherever. We will not split families. There is something fundamentally wrong here. So we'll get the economic benefits of immigration, and we'll make sure that we maintain the dignity that actually used to apply here and that we've always been treated with. Because Cameron went on about having family south of the border. Yes, I do. But I would reckon most of us Scots here also have a cousin or an aunt or somebody, whether it's in Canada, Australia, or somewhere else, because as Colin's rightly said, it's been the way for 600 years that we've been emigrating. There comes a time that we can get the jobs at home as well.
I've got a question from the audience here. The microphone's coming over.
Hi, my name is Blythe Shilson. I'm first year student here in Edinburgh College. You mentioned about not splitting families, but families have already been splitting up over by decisions. Half the family are saying yes, and half the family are saying no. How are you going to repair that when the decision is undecided? How are you going to repair the families?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because I do believe that the next question from Gary Fraser was going to be around that same kind of thing. So Gary, do you want to just ask your question as well, and perhaps marry them in? Where are you, Gary? I can't see you. Oh, there's down here. Can we have the mic down in front, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? There's something I want to say first as well. You're talking about universities and college, but you literally need to get back to the basics as well. You just forgetting about, if you're messing people about in council schemes like that now, there isn't a chance for most of the people that I know to even come to college or come to university. It's the reason that I love working in the college. So that's, I want to say that. But like, even with New Labour, with Brown and Blair, excuse me, with Brown and Blair with New Labour as well, they had a chance and they missed it. Sorry, Kezia, they had a chance and they missed it. And
Gary, sorry, what was your question?
Okay, after a vote on yes or no, are there any plans to heal the obvious split that's happened since politicians have asked her to take part in a referendum?
Okay, so I think if I get the two of you, what you're essentially asking is that since the polls are now so close, essentially after D-Day, there's going to be half the country at least that are disappointed by the result. What are both sides going to do in order to heal that divide, I suppose? And another question I suppose I would like to pose in that regard is, how do we also engage with the political momentum that's been, over the last couple of years, it's really built up towards the referendum? How do we continue to engage with people post-referendum who've become very politically aware and politically engaged? How do we keep them politically motivated? Cameron?
Can I come on to that thing? I went to Margaret MacDonald's celebration of her life, and she hoped above all that on September the 18th at 10 o'clock at night, we'd all come back together. I haven't seen much instance of that at the moment because we've had things defaced, we've had all sorts of things defaced. I just hope we can all come together and have a sensible, proper argument. I'm also keen on maintaining the momentum. We've engaged, we all agree that this has been remarkable. We've engaged people, we've had a terrific debate, it's gone on. Yes, there have been some excesses, sure, we know that. on both sides perhaps, but more I think on the yes side. However, well, yes there are. Look at Jim Murphy, for example. That hasn't happened with us. So anyway, the point I'm really making is we must all come together on the 18th or the 19th really, and try and bury our differences and realise that we're one nation. And I think that's absolutely vital. That was Margot's wish, and she was a great politician. So I do hope we'll all come together then. I hope it's going to be with a constitutional sort of convention or something, but we've got to come together. Thank you.
Okay, and Colin, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, could I say that I have to think this debate in the last 2 years has been an absolute credit to the country. It's been a fantastic debate. It's been passionate, it's been respectful, it's been tolerant. I have every respect for the point of view of Cameron and Kezia, Neil Finlay, all the people that I've debated with. They're very talented people, they're passionate about their cause, they passionately put forward their case, they articulate it very well. And I'd like to believe humbly that the yes side can say the same. None of us would tolerate bad behaviour. Personally, I thought that was the waste of a good egg in Kirkcaldy. But the point is, we conducted ourselves in an honest, true, democratic, passionate, articulate, and an electric atmosphere. It's been a credit to the country. I have to say, I look around the world. I'm a political anorak, for which I make no apologies. I don't own an anorak, but anyway. And I look around the world and I see Scotland's one of those rare countries today that is absolutely engaged in politics with every fibre it's being. I'm sure the people in the Gaza are the same. I'm sure the people in Syria are the same, and in Ukraine are the same. But that's quite rare in the world, and we should be proud that we've engaged. We're energised by this. And I have to say that what happens next Thursday is the whole country must respect the result. I will respect the result regardless of whether it's yes or no. I expect all my fellow citizens to do the same, to ensure that the result is taken, is implemented. It's what the will of the people of Scotland have said, and we must all work to that end. And so far as the second part of the question is concerned, we all look, and again, I hope we're proud as punch about the engagement of this. You know, they're talking about 90% of the population are on the register, 80% plus are going to vote. That's 30% more than normally vote in the Scottish Parliament elections. That's fantastic. But I have to say the reason that we're engaged in it is because the issues are so precious to us, they're so important, they're so monumental, they're so far-reaching. And you're only going to engage in politics and keep that engagement if the next questions are also the same. So if we vote yes, for example, then I hope people are just as passionate about engaged and saying, right, now it's about negotiating the best possible deal for Scotland with London and Westminster, and then voting in 2016 to decide about corporation tax levels, to decide about whether we're a republic, to decide oh so many other things. And I hope and look forward to that level of engagement then. But we should be proud of it. Don't be frightened of it. This is fantastic. Celebrate it.
Okay. Kezia, would you like to come back on that?
I mean, I just completely agree with every word that Colin's just said there, and I think the first big test, if it was a yes, would be how involved you are as citizens in shaping the Constitution. Sure. Because if that ends up being something that's done by politicians, then I think we'll have missed a massive opportunity to change the way that we do politics. Listen, my dad's voting yes, and if you can look him up on Twitter, and you'll get a laugh because he's up there with some of the most ardent Twitter yes campaigners. And you should see the text messages he sends to me, which don't quite pass the Twitter test in their acceptability.
I thought he shouldn't have thrown that egg, though.
Yeah, so, you know, I think every family's got somebody on a different side in it, but I was starting to think today about preparing for the count next week, and I'd imagine everybody here will be at the big count in Ingleston. So not only are we counting the votes for Edinburgh at Ingleston, but the overall result for the whole of Scotland will be there. And I've been there a few times before for election counts, and every time I've been, I've either walked out delighted, although that's not happened for a wee while, or been utterly gutted. And it's been that strength of emotion, but I know I won't feel like that next Thursday. Because if it's a yes, then that's what the people have decided, and my job as a politician is just to get up and get on with it and make the very best of that and do my job to represent people. And if it's a no, I won't be celebrating that. I'll be relieved. It's what I campaigned for, but it's not that sensation that I would get from a Labour campaign where I'm fighting for a very clear set of values and policies for what I see. So I think it'll be quite easy for us to come together again afterwards, as long as we continue to conduct ourselves in the manner that we've done it so far.
And Kenny?
Well, I agree everything that Colin said. I think in a minute past 10, I'll either be deeply despondent or I'll be delighted. But Scotland can hold its head up high and take pride. We can be a beacon for the world. I don't agree with throwing eggs, that was reprehensible, but let's get things in context. There are no guns, there are no bombs. This has been carried out peacefully with rigorous debate, and the briefing put out by the President of the Scottish Police Federation about people not overplaying matters, I agreed. But we can take pride because, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I read a press report that suggested Prime Minister Rajoy in Spain was investing in riot gear because the people of Catalonia want a referendum. I've seen photo images on TV of children dying in the Ukraine. We will show in Scotland that you can carry out a debate after 307 years of an incorporating union. You can do so without one bullet being fired, one bomb being exploded, a wee bit of rancor. This can be an example to the world that governments can sit down and discuss issues of huge importance. They can do it peacefully, they can do it democratically. I hope that this will be a lesson to Spain. I hope it's something that can invigorate not just Ukraine, Gaza, or wherever else. And that's why I'll be deeply proud of the Scottish people, whatever the result.
Okay, I think we've got time for one question, so I'm going to bring the microphone to this chap here with the check shirt on.
Thank you. If I can preface the question with the observation that Colin Buchanan's opening statement is the first time I've ever heard it claimed that we live in a fair and equal society, because in one of the world's richest countries, there are food banks spread throughout it. How that makes us fair and equal, I don't know. I have here an article from Oil Industry News of last Wednesday. It's based on an investigation by oilandgaspeople.com, the world's largest oil and gas industry jobs board, and independent North Sea oil and gas industry experts. I'll just read you the headline, which says, Scottish West Coast untapped oil and gas reserves worth trillions. The figure quoted in it is 100 years. Would the panel like to comment?
Is anyone else totally bored of the conversation constantly being either about the pound or oil? Yeah. No. All right, okay, I'm going to go first of all to the Better Together side. Would you like to respond?
All I can comment is, there are statistics and lies. They're both the same. We can easily say, how do they know there's so much oil there? Okay, somebody's written it, that's fine, but if it doesn't actually prove anything, does it? It doesn't prove a thing. It doesn't. It's been written. Would you like to quote it? You've quoted it, it's fine, but it doesn't. They're experts, they've just said it. I mean, there's all sorts of statistics that we can say on these things. I don't think it's a question of, you've got to prove it, and I don't think we can. Either one way or the other. No, we can't.
Okay, and from the yes side, Kenny MacAskill, would you like to respond?
Well, when I was a student, I was told that the oil would all be gone by the year 2000. And remember that the British government studied report that said we'd be one of the wealthiest nations in Europe, up there with Switzerland, and kept it from the people of Scotland. As the Deputy First Minister said at a meeting in Craigentirry that I was at last night, the debate in Scotland is, do we have lots and lots of oil, or do we have lots and lots and lots and lots of oil? There's oil and gas there for the next 50 years. The decision we make next week is whether we get control of that asset. Margaret Thatcher used it to hammer the trade union movement. Tony Blair used it to fight a war in Iraq. There's 50 years left. Let's get control of it, make sure we use it for our people, young and old, and make sure we make a better future.
Kezia, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to oil, there's just two really things I would want to add to that. What Kenny's talking about is an oil fund, so being able to take the profits from the oil in the North Sea and putting it away for a rainy day, or choosing not to spend it just now but saving it for later. Oil economists, like the one that you've got in that article there, would say 22 of the last 23 years we wouldn't have had any money to put aside because the price of oil is so volatile that we wouldn't have had the extra cash to put aside. The money that we did have from oil, we spent on public services, we spent on schools and hospitals. That's what we did with it. But let me just end with this last point. Oil revenues represent 2% of the entire UK budget. In Scotland, it would be 20%, so it would be a massively integral part of the income that we have as a country. I would throw a question out to MD in there that considers themselves an environmentalist. Like, is really exploiting the North Sea and getting the last drip, no matter the danger we put workers in to get it out there, no matter the money that we subsidise private companies to go out and do it, is it really worth it for that? Is that the extent of our vision, is to base our future on oil when we could invest in renewable energy? And look at this college, for example. There's people here, I'd imagine, that are doing engineering. One thing we did in Scotland was invent the technology to get energy from the sea. But the technology that we've created gets manufactured in Germany because we haven't had an industrial policy in this country to take that ingenuity and turn it into actual living things and jobs. We could have done that. That's the future I've got for this country. It's not based on oil.
Okay, finally, Kenny, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond. Colin, sorry, beg your pardon, Colin.
I would just say, I think the oil debate has been the weakest part of the no case right from the very beginning, honestly. You think the way they talk, it was a blight, it was a liability.
Never said that. I never said that.
No campaign, they say that oil, it will run out by Friday. It's no worth.
I didn't say that.
It's no worth fourpence, and quite frankly, I wish we'd never discovered it in North Sea in 1967, and the truth is, you know, Kenny made the point earlier on that an independent Scotland would be the 14th richest country in the world. And it would be richer per head of the population, GDP per head of the population, than France is today, than Japan is today, than Spain is today, than Italy is today. And I picked those 4 countries because none of them have got oil. France doesn't get any oil, neither does Japan nor Spain or Italy. And I happen to think they would give their eye teeth for Scotland's oil and gas reserves, even if they are only going to last another 30 years and are only worth £30 trillion. But I would also say we've got a lot to learn from Norway. Norway, right across the North Sea. The North Sea oil, half of it belongs to us, half of it belongs to them. And what they did with it is, very wisely, decided that belongs to the Norwegian people. It's publicly owned in Norway. It's not publicly owned in our sector, and I, for one, would like to see the oil and gas reserves in the North Sea belong to the people. Not just the tax reserve revenue, but the oil itself.
I will give you a very, very brief response.
A very quick thing. The money that was raised from oil was not spent on helping the poor, on social care. It was spent stuffing the pockets of the City of London and put chief executives' wages to 185 times the national average. That's what the money from the oil was spent on. It was poured down the drain of the City of London.
That's that guy's opinion. Like, I disagree with it, but that's just where we're at. Yeah.
Okay, I'm very conscious that it's now 10 minutes to go in the debate. I'm going to give each person that's been involved in the debate 2 minutes to sum up their position. We'll go in reverse order, so we'll start with Cameron. And again, I have my trusty whistle here, ready to blow, so I'll give you a 30-second warning.
I won't need it. I'm just going to ask you a whole lot of questions. We haven't heard about the finances. How would the job opportunities in each sector be impacted? What would happen to my income if we don't have the pound? What is going to happen to the currency? That's an absolutely vital question. How will mortgage rates increase by? Surely they'll increase if we've got a smaller housing pool. They'll go up in England, up in Scotland, and down in England. How much extra tax would we have to pay? That's what we have to ask. Nobody's answered these questions. Are we going to be taxed more? Because where's all this money coming from? They've spent it time and time again. What would Scotland be in the European Union? Would we be in the European Union? Would we be in NATO? Would we be in the EU? Would we be in the United Nations? We've got a very big part in the United Nations at the moment. We're big players. If we come out of it, we'll be on the side. The EU, we won't be. Sorry, you're good. Okay, sorry. So, no time. Sorry. Okay. The truth is, I think that Scotland has delivered for the Union, and it will continue to do so. So I will be brief, but I'm just really asking a series of questions. Well, I think you have to ask those questions. I think you have to ask why we want to leave. You know, we're not oppressed. We're not oppressed. We're not like Ukraine or Kosovo or anything. You know, we haven't got the currency union. We need to keep the currency. We do need to keep the currency if that's what what everybody wants. We want to keep the currency, and we want to keep the union. So I think we'd be worse off if we separate, and we haven't had the answers.
Can I ask, please don't shout from the audience. It is unbelievably hot down here, and it's quite intimidating to speak to a group of people as well. Can we give some respect to the people that are standing here and answering your questions? Okay, Cameron, thanks very much for your summation there. I'm now going to go to Kenny.
Well, this is our chance and our opportunity to make a better Scotland. There are appalling statistics for child poverty in Scotland, but for many of us, probably a lot of us in this room, actually, Scotland's a good place to live in. It's a good quality of life, certainly for myself and Kezia and Cameron as MSPs. The tragedy in Scotland's not how bad things have been. It's how much better they could have been, how much better they should have been, and how much better we can actually make them. Now, it's fair that to err is human, and countries can make mistakes. The Republic of Ireland and Iceland have made mistakes, and they've paid for them very heavily. But they're sorting them out, and they're sorting them out themselves. Scotland won't be a Valhalla. There will be issues after an independent Scotland comes about. I know as Justice Secretary, the problems I faced, I'm not here to defend Margaret Thatcher, but alcohol abuse, the culture of violence, domestic abuse, that's a problem for us. But the solution is actually with us. That's not going to be sorted in London, it's not going to be sorted in Brussels, it's not going to be sorted in the United Nations. We're going to have to address it. And that's why this is our chance to take control of our own destiny, to make the country that we really want, to challenge the things where we're culpable and the failings are our own, but to take control of the levers of power, to be able to access the fiscal wealth that we do have, to change it for the country that we know it can be. It is and has been throughout this debate. Project Fear, we're too weak. We're too poor, we're too stupid, we can't do it, it's a big scary world out there, disaster will befall us. Yes, we can. We can make a better country, and we'll do it ourselves. We'll challenge our demons, but we'll be able to change our country for the better and hold our head up high internationally.
Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Kezia for her summation.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming along this afternoon. I think it's been a really good debate. I've certainly enjoyed it. I take a little bit offence to Kenny saying that the no side is always telling you you're too weak, too poor, too stupid. I've never said that. I've never said that in any debate I've been a part of. In town halls or whatever. I am really positive and excited and aspirational for the future of my country, and regardless of what happens next week, I'll go out and fight for Scotland to be a better and fairer place. This is just a question that we get to address as citizens of Scotland, and I look forward to the answer of it. But the question I've boiled it down to is not should Scotland be an independent country, it's is this the best way to make Scotland fairer and more equal? And my answer to that question is a no. I just think it will be, it's not the only way to change things. This isn't your one chance to have a more socially just country. The battle goes on. And why do I think that? Because I look at some of the supporters of Yes Scotland, you know, George Matheson, the guy that brought down RBS, Brian Souter, the man that made millions from Margaret Thatcher's privatisation of the buses, a massive homophobe that destroyed the social fabric of this country in so many ways. Jim McCall, a guy who's a tax exile who lives in Monaco. Three big names like that. They're not voting yes because they want a fairer Scotland. They're voting yes because they promise a corporation tax. So look at the white paper and ask yourself this. What is it in that white paper that will make this country fairer? What one thing, just find one thing that moves resource from the poorest people in this country, from the richest people in this country to the poorest people, because the only way it works right now is the other way, and that's corporation tax.
Okay, that was Kezia. I'm now going to hand over to Colin for his 2-minute summation.
Okay, I first of all would like to thank you for participating in this debate and participating in a way that's done you great credit, and I hope that the panellists have tried to shed some light on that. My remarks would be Scotland is ready. 2014, Scotland is ready to take responsibility. We're ready to face the challenges that are in front of us. And we as a country are optimistic, we're confident, and we're talented. And I think you face a choice next week, a choice between one side that says, this is as good as it gets, Scotland's got the best of both worlds as things stand just now, and a yes campaign that says, working people like us, the vast majority in Scotland, will be better off economically, socially and politically by taking our own decisions, shaping our own destiny and making the world as we see it. And I would say to you, I hope that you'll vote yes. I hope you'll get involved in yes with a week to go. But above all, I hope that you'll promise yourself one thing. Promise yourself that when Scotland votes yes for independence next Friday, you can wake up and turn to your wife, your husband, your partner, your son or daughter, family and friends and say, I did that. I did that. I changed the world forever. Thank you very much.
I think if you'll indulge me, I would quite like to take a straw poll just now and see how the audience plans to vote next week. Is everyone up for that? Okay. If you're undecided, raise your hand. Raise it straight up so I can see. Okay. No. So, sorry, straight up, hand up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 votes, okay? If you're planning to vote for no, could you put your hand up, please? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, and if you're planning to vote yes, could you put your hands up? That's too many to count. Okay, I think that was clear that this audience is voting yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been an absolutely fantastic audience, and I'd just like to thank EXA for inviting me along. My name's Bonnie Sandlin, I'm the NUS Scotland Women's Officer. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our 4 panellists who have given their time up today to come and talk to you. And I'd like to make one request of you, and that is that after you've cast your vote next week, please stay involved somehow in your local politics. Get involved with your local political parties, get other people engaged in doing stuff, and make sure that this momentum doesn't die off post-referendum. Thank you so much for your time.